Here are the 10 best Syracuse basketball and football transfer portal additions since 2020.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, it's a crossover between football and basketball. We're going through Syracuse's 10 best transfer portal ads since 2020. The way I did the list was 5 are coming from football and 5 are coming from basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, so as I said, the 10 best Syracuse basketball and football transfer portal additions since 2020, and we are counting 2024, even if some of those players have not played yet for Syracuse. And the reason why I say that is because number one is someone who has not played a down for Syracuse football yet. Yes, football to lead us off. And that is Fadil Diggs, 6'5", 260-pound defensive lineman. He transferred from Texas A&M after 4 seasons there. He's entering in his last year of eligibility. And I recently said that I believe he is the second best player on Syracuse football's roster, only behind Oronde Gadsden. So if you're looking at another transfer who's going to make this list in Kyle McCord, he has to be ranked ahead of Kyle McCord if I think he is a better player at his position than Kyle McCord. Second on Texas A&M this past season in tackles for loss with 11, and he could, as of right now, projects to be around a mid-round pick in the NFL draft. The last one I saw, which was from USA Today, had Fadil Diggs in the 4th round of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, team doesn't really matter because you don't know exactly how the draft is going to shake out or how the NFL season is going to shake out. But nevertheless, I believe he was pick number 112. And so Fadil Diggs projects to be around a 4th round pick this year. And if he has a good year, maybe he'll be even higher than that. I think the way to improve is that his career high in sacks for a season was last year with only 4. Perhaps he can raise that total to 7 or 8. And let's be honest, the ACC is an easier conference than the SEC. So maybe he gets about 7 to 8 sacks this season and boosts that draft stock. So Fadil Diggs, in my opinion, is the best transfer portal addition that Syracuse football or basketball has made since 2020. Let's move on to number 2. We're going to go to basketball. Basketball now. And that is JJ Starling, 6'4", 200-pound shooting guard. He transferred from Notre Dame after being a 5-star recruit over there. He played 1 season. He was an all-freshman in the ACC in his only year at Notre Dame. He still has 2 years of eligibility left. He played this past season for Syracuse, of course, and he averaged 13 points a game, 3 rebounds, and an assist, or 2 assists per game. Pretty efficient from the field. He was, I believe, 46% from the field. So he was someone who got better as the season went on, and we've talked about it a number of times here on this podcast. But what I've really left out is I believe that last season's JJ Starling was the floor. I believe that was the floor for him. And he did show improvement from his freshman year. I think maybe we were a little underwhelmed because he was such a highly ranked transfer coming in, and he was a former 5-star recruit. But I think we saw his floor. Obviously, he was coming off shoulder surgery, adjusting to a new offense, a new team. It's not easy. And so he struggled heading into ACC play. But once he got into conference play, he was a significantly better player. And he was one of the reasons why Syracuse almost made that turnaround and almost backdoored their way into the NCAA tournament. They were just a couple games away. If they had won at Clemson and then maybe made a little bit of a run in the ACC tournament, they could have made it. JJ Starling, of course, was benched in that Clemson game for his poor defense. But I think we saw the floor from JJ Starling this past season. So he is my number 2 transfer that Syracuse football or basketball has added since 2020. Moving on, let's go back to football. Promise you it's not going to alternate between football and basketball this entire time. And that is number 3, Kyle McCord. I believe he is the third best transfer addition Syracuse football or basketball has made since 2020. 6'3", 210-pound quarterback heading into his last year of eligibility. 4-star Ohio State transfer. I believe he was a top 15 quarterback transfer in this past class. Top 10 QBR in the nation. We've gone through his numbers, over 3,000 yards, 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. You know his numbers by now. And you know my opinion about how Kyle McCord, if you are new, my opinion on Kyle McCord is I think he is a very solid quarterback, probably at least top 5 in the ACC. But at the same time, I think he was a victim of the fact that Ohio State has had so many great quarterbacks over the years. I mean, the previous 3 before him were all first-round NFL draft picks. Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, CJ Stroud, all went in the first round. I believe all of them went in the top 20 of the first round. So Kyle McCord didn't light the world on fire. I know he had the best weapons maybe in the country, Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka. That running game was really strong. You know their offensive line is good too at Ohio State. I think he is a solid quarterback. And if we're going by, I'm kind of ranking this by the best that they've added, the best transfers. And that's why I think Kyle McCord's third. But if you were to say the most impactful in terms of a player that can really change a program, I would say it might be Kyle McCord because he's the quarterback. He's the quarterback from Ohio State, highly touted. If he leads Syracuse to 9 to 10 wins this season, that can change the trajectory of Syracuse football, which is already looking up with Fran Brown under the controls now. Fadil Diggs can have a great season and be a better player, but he might not be as impactful as Kyle McCord. But still, this list is the best transfer additions, not the most impactful transfer additions. But nevertheless, Kyle McCord still comes in at number 3 on my list. Number 4, we're staying with football and we're staying with a quarterback. I believe Garrett Shrader needs some love. Garrett Shrader, he transferred from Mississippi State heading into the 2021 season. He beat out Tommy DeVito after they were going back and forth early in his first season at Syracuse. Tommy DeVito was coming off, I believe, ACL surgery, and they were going back and forth early in that season. Garrett Shrader beat him out due to, in part, his running ability. His career stats in 3 seasons at Syracuse, mostly as a starter, by the way. 39 passing touchdowns to 17 interceptions. Not terrible. Could be better. 60% completion percentage. Again, not terrible, but could be better. But he also ran for 31 touchdowns while at Syracuse. So 70 combined touchdowns. Forgive me with poor math there. 39 plus 31 is 70. 70 career touchdowns in 3 seasons at Syracuse. He didn't have the highest ceiling in the world, but you knew what you were getting in terms of a floor from Garrett Shrader. When they were playing against that poor competition, you knew that Garrett Shrader can light them up. It was just when they were playing against those stellar teams, that's where he really struggled. I don't really see him having an NFL future because it was his arm that was really lacking. I've said it when I've compared him and Kyle McCord together. Garrett Shrader kind of had, to me, a little bit of a noodle arm. And it makes sense. He's a converted wide receiver. He couldn't really gun it down the field. He kind of had to lollipop it in there. Every throw was like, whoop. But still, he was a very serviceable quarterback and something that I had to look up. He is the first quarterback since Ryan Nassib to lead Syracuse football to 2 bowl games in 3 seasons. Ryan Nassib did it in 2010 and 2012. Ryan Nassib was not the quarterback in 2013. They did make a bowl game in 2013, but he wasn't the quarterback then. So Nassib did it in 2010 and 2012, and Garrett Shrader did it in 2022 and 2023. So he gets a little bit of love as, in my opinion, the 4th best transfer portal addition that Syracuse football or basketball has made since 2020. Now moving on, we'll go back to basketball here. This guy is someone who's trying to make it in the NBA with the Lakers and the Heat. That might be the hint that you need here to figure this one out. Cole Swider, he transferred from Villanova heading into the 2021-22 season. He averaged 14 points and 7 rebounds on 41% three-point shooting in his only season at Syracuse. And I remember him having almost 40 points. I believe it was 36 at UNC. That game went to overtime. It was back and forth. It was a tough loss for Syracuse in really a tough season. And by the way, Syracuse, just a side note here, has never won at North Carolina. They won't have to do it this year, though. Thank goodness. They won't have to because they have them at home this year. But they've never won at North Carolina. But Cole Swider and his 36 points, they almost pulled off the upset, winning in Chapel Hill. That team, I think we need to dissect that a little bit more, but that team had 2 flaws. Number one, they had 5 great players and nobody else. Maybe 5, great is a strong word there. 5 good players and nobody else, so they had no depth. And also, they couldn't play defense. So they were a great offensive team, but they had the second worst. They were second worst in the ACC in points against per game that season. That's why they went under 500 for the first time in the Jim Boeheim era. But Cole Swider, nevertheless, was a very solid player in his only season on the Hill. So the top 5 transfer portal additions that Syracuse football or basketball has made since 2020. Fadil Diggs came in at number 1, JJ Starling at number 2, Kyle McCord at 3, Garrett Shrader at 4, and Cole Swider at 5. If you agree or disagree, leave a comment below. Now, coming up, we'll go over numbers 6 through 10 on the best transfer additions that football or basketball has made since 2020. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and the Celtics lead the Dallas Mavericks 2-0 in the series, and it's looking like it'll be a short series. If you want to attend an NBA Finals game, specifically in Dallas, although you can purchase tickets for Boston in case there is a Game 5, although it's looking like it's not, maybe, I don't think it's going to leave Dallas. I think Boston might sweep them. But regardless, if you want to buy tickets, all you got to do is download Gametime. Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. And my favorite part is I get to see the view from my seat before I buy. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the streaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and on today's show, we are going over the 10 best Syracuse basketball and football transfer portal additions since 2020. I just gave you my top 5, but I'll reiterate it once again. Fadil Diggs at number 1, JJ Starling 2, Kyle McCord 3, Garrett Shrader 4, and Cole Swider coming in at 5. And yes, I am including 2024 transfers, even though they have not seen the floor or the field yet for Syracuse. Still, I'm putting them in there. Now, moving on, let's go to number 6, and that is Alan Griffen. He transferred from Illinois after 2 seasons with them, heading into the 2020-21 season. That was the last time that Syracuse basketball made the NCAA tournament. He averaged 13 points on 43% shooting in his only season at Cuse. He was really productive. He was a starter for, I think, the entire season he was at Syracuse. Really solid player. And then towards the end of the season, specifically in postseason play, his play really tapered off. In 5 games between the ACC and the NCAA tournament, Alan Griffen, who was a really productive player and still managed to average 13 points a game, in his entire season. But in those 5 games, he averaged only 4 points. Only 4. His minutes got cut down from 25 to 30 to basically 10 a night. He was non-existent in the postseason play. And perhaps if he was a little bit stronger, Syracuse could have made an even more of a run than they already did going to the Sweet 16, right? Maybe. I don't know if they would have beaten that Houston team, even if Alan Griffen was on his game. Houston was just a terrible matchup for Syracuse that year. I remember I was so confident that Syracuse was going to the Elite Eight because when they beat West Virginia, I believe Rutgers had like a 10-point lead with a few minutes left on Houston. And it seemed like we were going to play Rutgers in the Sweet 16. And I know we had lost to Rutgers early in the season. Thought they were going to get there, though. So I thought they were going to beat them. Buddy Boeheim was hot. It was a better matchup for them. And then Houston came back, beat Rutgers. So that was the matchup for the Sweet 16. And yeah, it didn't go well. And even Alan Griffen was on his game. I don't think they beat him. But Alan Griffen was a really solid player in his only season for Syracuse. That's why he comes in at number 6. He could have been higher had he been better in postseason play, though. Moving on back to football, Chris Bleich, an offensive lineman, 6'6", 320 pounds. He was mostly a guard at Syracuse. He transferred from Florida after 2 seasons heading into the 2021 year for Syracuse. In 3 seasons on the Hill, he made 32 starts at guard. He was honorable All ACC this past season. And the last 2 years, Chris Bleich allowed only 3 combined sacks. So he was a very steady presence on that offensive line. Obviously, he was a guard for Sean Tucker, running for multiple 1,000-yard seasons, and LaQuinn Allen this past year. Very productive player, Chris Bleich. Maybe you can make an argument he should be higher on this list, but I have him at number 7. He went undrafted in the 2024 NFL draft. Let's see if he carves out a role at any point in the NFL. Who knows? You never know. Moving on now to number 8, and we're going to go back to basketball for this one. And I don't know if I've really said who I think is the best transfer portal addition that Syracuse basketball has made this offseason. I don't think I've said who's the best, in my opinion. But now it's about to come out. And I believe it's Eddie Lampkin, 6'11" center, a 4-star transfer from Colorado. Last year, he averaged 10 points and 7 rebounds. They saved him. He is coming back after there were rumors that he was decommitting from the team. He's staying with the commitment, which is great. He's someone who next year I project him to play 25 to 30 minutes and be a very capable starting caliber ACC center. I don't think he's got all conference on him. I don't think he's that type of player. But he's very, very, very steady. You just hope that if his defense can improve a little bit, that'll be even better. But regardless, what you're hoping for from Eddie Lampkin next season is to put up similar numbers to what he did at Colorado last year, or at least have similar production. Also, one of the best passing big men in the country. This is someone at the top of the key, can dish it. You can build your offense around Eddie Lampkin with him in the post as well. So Eddie Lampkin coming in at number 8, in my opinion, the best transfer portal addition for Syracuse basketball this season, and he comes in at number 8 since 2020 for both basketball and football. So congratulations to Eddie Lampkin. Now, number 9, we're going back to football here, and then number 10 will be basketball player. Isaiah Johnson at number 9. I mentioned how he is a tough loss for Syracuse football this year, not having him in the secondary. He is 6'3", 205-pound defensive back. He transferred from Dartmouth after 3 seasons with them, heading into the 2022 season. And he appeared in 25 of 26 games for the Orange over the last 2 years. I believe the only game he missed was the bowl game. That was about it. And he made 19 starts in those 2 seasons. Very productive defensive back for this team. The only reason why he's not back is, well, pursuing, I believe he lost years of eligibility. He doesn't have a year of eligibility left. So he's trying to make it in the NFL. Didn't get drafted. There were some thoughts, or there were some mock drafts out there that had him getting drafted. We'll see how he does if he gets an invite to a training camp and maybe makes a roster. But Isaiah Johnson was a very productive defensive back for this team. Last year, according to PFF, which is Pro Football Focus, they grade players in both college and pros on a scale of 0 to 100. But according to PFF, Isaiah Johnson was the second best defender on Syracuse football this past season. He had the second highest grade. So it's a tough loss. Isaiah Johnson going to the NFL. Wish him all the best. Syracuse, I wish they had him for this next season. But moving on to the final player who made the list for the 10 best transfer portal additions, football and basketball since 2020. Jimmy Boeheim at number 10, 6'8", 215-pound forward. He transferred to Syracuse after 3 seasons at Cornell, heading into the infamous 2021-2022 season. He averaged 14 points and 6 rebounds on 38% three-point shooting. I remember Jimmy Boeheim having a superb game against Duke in the ACC tournament where he had 28 points, and they almost pulled off that upset as well. 2 almost upsets that season. Cole Swider against UNC and Jimmy Boeheim in the ACC tournament without his brother, who was suspended against Duke. Nevertheless, Jimmy Boeheim he made ACC conference tournament team that year. Let me rephrase that. He made the conference tournament team in 2022. Jimmy Boeheim, solid player, only season on the Hill, averaged 14 points and 6 rebounds. You just wish there was more depth and more defense on that team because they had offensive firepower. They were top 5 offense in the conference. He just didn't get it done that season. So coming up, a recap of the 10 best Syracuse basketball and football transfer portal additions since 2020. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Day now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we're wrapping up today's show with the 10 best Syracuse basketball and football transfer portal additions since 2020. We talked about numbers 6 through 10 just now. We also went over numbers 1 through 5. Now the entire list for those that may have missed it or want a little bit of a refresher, here you go. At number 1, I said Fadil Diggs, even though he hasn't played for Syracuse yet. I expect big things from the Texas A&M 4-star defensive lineman transfer. Then you have JJ Starling coming in at number 2. Of course, he spent 1 season at the Hill so far. Pretty solid in that year, and I believe we only saw the floor from JJ Starling. At number 3, I had Kyle McCord. We know about him. Number 4, Garrett Shrader. I gave him a little bit of love. I think Garrett Shrader was a very serviceable quarterback, but Kyle McCord is going to be a step better, in my opinion. Number 5, you had Cole Swider. He was very good in his 1 season on the Hill, trying to make it in the pros right now. Wasn't his fault that team wasn't very good. Number 6, Alan Griffen. Very productive player in only 1 season at Syracuse, but he just tapered off in postseason play. Could have been a lot higher. Number 7, you had Chris Bleich, a very productive offensive lineman for this team over the last 2 seasons, only giving up 3 combined sacks. Number 8, you have Eddie Lampkin, who hasn't seen the field yet or hasn't seen the court yet for Syracuse basketball, but I expect big things from him. 10 points and 7 rebounds would be very solid from Eddie Lampkin. At number 9, I have Isaiah Johnson, second best defender according to PFF on Syracuse football this past season. I think they're going to miss him a little. I wish he was back, but pursuing pro opportunities. At number 10 is Jimmy Boeheim. Again, not really his fault that the team wasn't very good in 2022. Averaged 14 points and 6 rebounds in his only season on the Hill. So that about does it for the 10 best Syracuse basketball and football transfer portal additions since 2020. Let me know if you want me to continue doing these top 10 lists. I'm going to go from top 10 lists over the summer. Still want to do some player profiles of recruits and, of course, Syracuse football position groups throughout the entire summer. We've done receivers. We've done defensive backs. I promise you more coming with position groups, getting you ready for what could be a very special 2024 Syracuse football season. But that about does it for this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you know right away when I'm dropping the next podcast. And everyone, have a great rest of your day.